The reality is, if you want a fruit tree to continue to bear fruit, it has to be pruned. And the pruning is not actually a narrative on what it's doing wrong. It's a narrative on what it's doing right for the long haul of fruitfulness. It's something I think we really press, and we want students to get a handle on, because we're like, and we say this, we've said it for years, your neediness for the Lord is your honor, not your shame, because that is kingdom culture. To have needs, to need the Lord and to need each other and to need more of the Lord is a lifelong experience.
Okay, just to warm us up, we're waking up. I was thinking about how we've seen so many alumni lately, weddings, markets, students walking the land, showing up at lunches, walking into the farmhouse. And I just to kind of go around and reflect a little bit. What is something that you have felt surprised by in encountering former students in these past, like even in the past month since the school ended?
I don't know that I would call it surprise. I think one thing maybe it's a surprise, I'm not sure. I think I'm encouraged by some of the soberness I feel in some of their hearts when they talk about, like, when they look me in the eyes, you do that. Eye contact is so big for us, and when I lock eyes and I'm like, how are you?
How are you? Yeah.
And they're like, I'm good, Mel. Like, life is really hard, but I'm staying in it. And I think I feel encouraged by that sobriety, honestly, because life is really hard. And I that encourages me probably more than the, like, everything's good, like, I'm doing great. It's like when they can actually honestly and feel the courage and boldness to tell the truth.
To be truthful.
And like, man, like, life has been tough lately, or stuff's going on with my family, or I'm transitioning jobs, or like I feel the pressure. But I'm in it. I feel like we had a lot of those moments even together with former students. And that really, I'm like, okay, this is awesome. Like, it feels like such a deep reward for us, for all of us, to just like, okay, they're doing it. Like, they're doing the work. They're doing the work. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was thinking too, like, at the end of Jesus's discipleship season. At the end of, he had a 3-year school that they were in. he ends it with saying some hard things, like, in this world you will have trouble, but don't lose heart. I have overcome the world. And I can look back at, like, our first few schools, and it was like we just wanted to give them a magical encounter. and from the first day of the school to the end of the school, we wanted it to be a honeymoon with Jesus. But we weren't talking about, like, hard things are coming, pressure systems are coming, perfect storms are coming. You will be unraveling for the rest of your life. But you'll be with a Father who hears you and is walking with you. So I do feel, when I see students now, that we've prepared them more than ever for how hard life can be, but at the same time not to lose heart in the middle of the pressure. And I can see in their eyes, like, they are cultivating more pressure in here than the pressure coming at them.
Come on.
And so I do feel the smile of God that we prepared them more than our first few schools.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, okay, we're really, really preparing them.
For sure.
I've been so, it's like I'm less surprised than I am just moved by some of the clarity I have experienced, even in some of the students that did the school years ago, or running into alumni who are married now and they have a spouse who maybe did a school, maybe they haven't, or maybe they've done a retreat, or maybe I just met them one time at a worship night, and just experiencing their gratitude. I think that's been so rewarding. To have moments with a spouse of a former student. Maybe it's a student from 6 years ago, to look them in the eyes and then turn to the left or the right, see their spouse, and ask them a question like you're talking about, and then feel their gratitude because they've entered, what they're walking out together is still connected to what their husband or their wife experienced here in their early 20s or in their mid 20s, and then experiencing the gratitude. Even during a recent moment, I met a student's parents for the first time when we had the market. And this is a student, it was one of the guys who did the school year 2019, so before 2020.
Wow.
Which it feels like a long time ago.
Sure.
And then he did phase 2 in 2020, but I've never met his parents. They had never I just had never met them. And I walked closely with this guy and just looking his parents in the eyes.
Yeah.
And not having to even say a lot, because there was so much understanding,
right.
and there was even so much unspoken gratitude.
Right.
I've been here long enough now to where, I'm having some of those moments that I've heard about where you meet a person's parents, but you maybe it was 10 years ago or
right.
5 years ago that you walked with that person. And I think just experiencing the gratitude and feeling very humbled by that.
Yeah.
And feeling how time really isn't as much of a factor as I sometimes
right.
tell myself it is.
Right.
I'm like, it's been so many years.
Wow.
But then having the same moment where I'm like, they're doing it.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, I remember talking with this person or encouraging them to have that conversation with their father or to consider what it would be like, or to write a vision statement about the kind of husband they might become.
Right.
And then to see them in that place.
Right.
And it's like no time has passed, and yet it feels like a lifetime. But I think I've been really struck by the gratitude. And then
it
that
is such
reminder,
a gift, right? To be able to see, when we see them after years, and just if there's any hint of they've continued to do, or the seed that was planted, maybe it's a tiny little shoot. It's not even bearing a ton of fruit yet, but it is growing. Yeah. Right? It's I feel like we all are okay, relief. Yeah.
Relief. It's that relief and that reward at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Phil?
Well, it's always refreshing to see students again. And I feel like something that amazes me, maybe doesn't surprise me, but what amazes me is we're not a ministry school, so everyone's not headed necessarily into ministry. That's right. or into missions. They go out into all these other places in life, and talking to them about what they've been doing, the jobs they've started, going to school, the creative pursuits they're going after. It's all so different. Yeah. But in all those different spheres, what we've given them, they can actually keep walking out and practicing with completely different types of community in totally different workplaces, in churches that are just such a diverse. There's just such a diversity of places that they could end up, and it's still everything they've received at our schools. It applies in all of those places. Yeah. So I think I get excited talking to students about, what are you up to now? Yeah. Yes. And it what they have done in the seasons at the farm is something they can take with them anywhere. So.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah,
so
I would agree.
Yeah.
So when we were talking earlier about just how much the school has evolved, even just from the beginning, where we were so encounter forward, because that's all we knew. We wanted to give everyone this 60-day just encounter with the Lord. And I think we got to a point as we were in our early 20s, so we were just so young. Wow. And at that time, it was just 18 to 21-year-olds, and we had done years of high school camps. So, you're talking about a lot of really young students, and we were really young. And all we knew was let's just do high encounter, the love of God. Just we'd stay up all night praying and worship and all those things. But as the years went on, the craving was I want them to make it at work. I want them to make it in the community they're going back to in South Africa. I want them to make it, and maybe not even just make it. I want them to actually thrive. I want them to make it in their future marriage or relationships, friendships. Wait, do we care about their relationships with their families, and how much work that actually needs over the next 5 years? And I think looking back at like how much we've evolved to get 15 years. I mean, we just did our 15th school, and I'm amazed at just how much has changed.
Yeah.
Because we is like our whole team. We're still growing.
Yeah.
And we're asking ourselves, what's important to us? And like, Lord, what's important to you? And how do we keep coming to that table of learning, even as, adults and parents and leaders and all this stuff and friends? Like, how do we keep coming humbly to the table of learning? And how are you continuing to reframe our school even after 10 years, 12 years, 14 years, 15 years? I mean, so much has changed. Even in since 2020,
It really has.
it's been so dramatic. Like the shift of even the model of what we do is different because the world is different and we're different.
Yes.
And I just love thinking about that, because the original like expression of just like, if we can just get them in an encounter, it'll change them, which is true. But we also have been like just wrestling with that. What does it actually mean to give them tools? And what is like, we're all doing work, but are we doing good work? Are we doing the right work? And the evolution of that, that process. I mean, when you think back on 12 years ago, 14 years ago, and like how the Lord just kept bringing even language and help and tools into our lives. Which is really the only reason we're all still here. Like that we even have a community that we're like an existing community that students even walk into. Which a lot of people don't even understand, that we have a culture that we're actually really committed to outside of the schools. And as
year round, day after day.
Year round, day after day. And as that culture continues to be tended to, as we continue to learn and come to that table, what the students walk into gets truer and truer and more potent. And I think more believable. Would that be an okay word to use? Like, like not believable, like buy-in, but like, oh, they get in there, like they're with people that believe in what they're doing. Does that make sense? Like in that way. Like that, if we're convinced, right? It's like when you walk into an environment and people aren't really convinced that what they're doing is
you can really, smell it, you know it right away.
You can, but when you walk, like I feel like the more we've given to what does it mean to be good stewards of even our own lives, as friends, as community builders, as a missional community, all the words, like what does it mean to stay humble and yielded to each other, to the Lord? And how does that actually affect the environment that the students walk into? Because now they're like 20 to 30-year-olds. It's not the 18-year-olds.
And they're coming in with, some of them coming in with so much life experience.
So much career experience.
They've just come out of jobs, different fields.
Right.
Because a lot
accountants,
of people,
lawyers, like doctors taking a break, and then just
chemical engineers, like all kinds.
Right. And I think the more we press in, the more they come into an environment, they're like, whoa, these people believe. They're not just talking. They believe what they're saying. And I am amazed that has grown so much. I feel grateful for it.
I was going to say, and this is kind of for anyone, do you feel like we've become more honest about, even with our language about it as we've grown? Because as you're talking, I'm like, how many times did you say the word work? Or tool? Right. And how much do we use that language in our school today versus 5 years ago? Or versus 10 years ago, in the place where we're embracing all of what life is and the both and. The joy and the pain. We're not, it feels like we're not mincing language like maybe we would have once done.
I agree.
And maybe do you feel like that might be connected to some of the buy-in?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that initially you're like, you don't want to scare people away. So you like, you don't dumb it down, but you definitely like how do we just smooth it over and like offer it in a way that's like, it's work, but it's really worth it. You know, like you do a little bit more convincing. And I think even as culture becomes more honest, which is, you know, we love, and it's beautiful and it's tough.
Yeah.
But I think that we're moving away from like what people want the most is just, please, would someone just tell the truth? Like, will you just speak bluntly and honestly? And then if we speak truth, then they have permission to speak truth. And like, can I be honest with actually where I'm at?
Yeah.
Will you still love me?
Yeah.
Will you accept me? Like, I'm a mess. And we're like, well, wonderful. We like, we're a discipleship school.
Yeah, that's what
wouldn't you say?
Yes.
Like, we do spiritual formation, and Jesus picked 12 very messy people. He didn't pick the perfect ones that wouldn't need any help.
Right.
He picked the ones that were like full of so much pain and disappointment and offense and intensity and aggression. And he like committed to even their interaction with each other, their interaction with him. Like, they were asking crazy questions. And I think.
And they felt the permission to do it.
Yeah, they did.
That says a lot.
Because Jesus was so approachable, because he was honest.
Yeah.
And he had worked through his 20s. I mean, he did. He like gave so much time to his 20s.
Yeah.
Like that. I mean, we don't even know what was he doing? 10 years of just like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know, and he's learning, he's growing, he's asking questions, he's
but that
studying.
gives so much permission, because we talk about that in our schools a lot.
Yeah.
That Jesus gave time in his 20s. That, you know, like it says in Luke, that he grew in wisdom and favor before God and man. But we don't. I think even I remember in my 20s, I didn't know how much permission I had to learn in that time. To like we've talked about, to become more of a learner. It felt like by the time I get to mid-20s, I need to really have some things locked in.
Yep.
And to know. And I feel like just that gloss over piece that, and then he started his ministry, and that's where the story, but we don't, and we talk a lot about that in our school.
Yeah, we do.
But I think especially more and more in this information age, and with everything we have access to, I feel like the pressure system is high to know in our 20s what we believe about everything and what we're going to do with the rest of our life. Yeah. And that's probably some of the tension that students coming in feel, is like they're supposed to already have it all together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're just giving so much permission.
Oh, for sure.
How would you know?
Right.
You haven't even tried that yet.
Right.
No one's asked you those questions before.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like that is really significant.
Yeah. I remember it was in 8th grade. It was like towards the end of the 8th grade year, and we had this special teacher come into our class, and she talked about how important it was for us to choose our career path. And what am I?
In 8th grade?
8th grade, yeah. I'm like,
that's still middle school.
Wow.
And I mean, I literally can feel the pressure in my body still with that moment created.
I'm tensing up now.
And just like, and you know, and she's like, it's so important. We did this whole questionnaire and so as a 12, 13-year-old, our focus in so much of the Western world is about what we do.
Yeah.
And we put all the value on what we do.
Yeah.
And I think so much of the way we've approached the 18-inch journey, and then the way Jesus approached his discipleship, is summed up in that thing that Dallas Willard says. God is not so concerned in what we do. Yeah. He's concerned in what we become.
Right.
For that's the only thing we'll take with us into eternity. Yeah. I'm not going to take my career or my awards or my accolades or my home or my car into eternity. I'm going to take into eternity the person that I become. And we've had doctors, we've had lawyers, we've had so many come do the school who
youth leaders.
Youth leaders, yeah. a postman at our school. But and all these things but so many of them were like thrown on this treadmill with that dangling mystical bar, that carrot in front of them what are you going to do with your life? Sure. What are you going to do? Yeah. But there's
if I figure out I have peace.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And there's no focus on who you're going to become. And so then we create these schools around information. Yeah. And we say a lot in school, like, information is not transformation.
That's right.
Yeah. And because if information was transformation, we are like, with these, we are the most informed generation that's ever been. I can Google and any kind of information I need right now I can get, but that's not transformation. And even Jesus's discipleship, he's not giving them perfect, watertight answers. No. He's speaking in mystery. He speaks, and then they're like, what did you even mean with the seed that was sown on the ground? And he has to explain it, because he's longing to get to their heart so they can find out who they are. And I think it's our illusion of just wanting to be in control.
For sure.
It would be amazing if we had a school that we could just give them information and it would transform them. But the school's messy. My life is messy right now.
Yes.
Because I'm still in the work of transformation. I'm still, and that takes work.
I remember a moment this past school where we were doing just a moment of reflection, like Monday morning, like, what are you learning?
I love those moments. Yeah.
And one of the students raised his hand. He said, I'm learning that I'm a much bigger mess than I thought I was. And
we all rejoice.
And I'm like, that moment was very authentic. Like, if you can get to a level of awareness that is not full of toxic shame, but it's full of that like healthy, like, whoa, if I just keep on this treadmill and this trajectory and I don't actually learn how to take care of my inner world, my soul, like my mind, like, how am I stewarding the garden that is like my life, my relationships, the way I love the Lord, the way I love people, the way I love myself. Like, if I don't learn how to do this, like, all of this like illusion of control and peace will run out.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, for sure.
And we like, I think as we keep going, we're also having that revelation, like, oh, we all want control.
Yes.
And there's no way around it. Like, we've been taught that if you do it right, you will have control. And you can somehow control all of the stuff going on and
you'll have peace.
And you'll have that restedness. And I do think that in a kind of brutal way, like, we have to pop those illusions so that then we can just do honesty.
Yeah. For sure.
Like, just like, how do we do honesty? And I think that is the sobriety of this school that is really hard to communicate. Like, we can't like even show those moments because they're so holy.
Yeah.
Like, those like aha awareness moments are so sacred and holy in a person's journey with the Lord and themselves. Like, it's hard to even explain it.
Yeah.
But that is the goal, right? Like, I mean, I would say that one of our goals is that we would come to that brutal place of honest awareness that our need for the Lord and our need for each other is much greater than we ever thought it was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
What do you say?
Yeah. I agree.
Why do you think we're ashamed of our needs?
I think I would say off the cuff, like, we've been taught, even culturally, that the younger we can choose that path and the younger we can make those decisions, then we gain respect, applause. The younger we can...
Affirmation.
And then where we create an alternate belief system, I think of like, okay, I'm so good. I'm so locked in. I don't actually need anything or anyone.
Wow.
And I think that our culturally, like, and I think in any culture, like the pride that feeds, like, you know what you're doing with your life? You feel good? Like, you know where you're going? Like, and just like, yeah, like I don't need anyone. I don't even really need the Lord. Wow. Right. And like, until crisis hits. And then it's like, wait, I did everything so right. Why am I experiencing pain? Wow. What I think would be a huge
I agree.
wall that our students come with.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
Yes, I agree. I think that we really value when students come to our schools who have experienced the pressure of life.
Yes. Yeah.
And all of the pressure of life has pressed on things inside of them. Because I remember coming as a student that way.
Right, right.
I was in missions for several years, and I started feeling the pressure revealed to me. Oh, I'm messy in a lot of ways. Yeah. I don't know how to love.
Right.
And I don't feel whole in different places, and I'm not sure what to do.
Yeah.
And I think there's we're throughout our like growing up, being in school, we're taught so many things, but we're not necessarily taught how to care for our wholeness in our inner worlds.
Right. Wow.
And so I think it's really countercultural.
Yes.
To think that that is a good thing, to realize, oh, I feel messy. I don't feel whole. I'm not sure how to keep my world under control.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think it takes a lot of courage to like pause in life and do a school like ours.
Right.
Because it is saying like no, I don't have everything together. But culture is telling me I have to be safe and to be okay. Right. Whereas, like, I think for our community, we are discovering that our safety, our security, our wholeness is not found in having my whole life under control. It's being rooted in Jesus. And there's a lot of things that we grow up in school learning, but it's not necessarily that. To how do I live a life rooted in Jesus? Yes. And that's my safety, that's my security. That's what makes me successful, that's what makes me whole.
Right. And that's what gives me the courage and the strength to face anything.
Anything in life. Right. And so I think it's countercultural, so it takes courage to pause on life and decide I'm not going to continue on this conveyor belt that is meant to make me successful, whether it's career or whatever. None of those things are wrong. It's just I'm willing to step away and get rooted in the Lord and spend a season learning how to be whole in Him instead of what the rest of the world is saying. Makes us whole, makes us safe, makes us secure. But it does mean we have to look at how needy we are, which is scary. And to just the question you asked, I think we can feel ashamed of our needs. I think we're taught to feel ashamed.
I agree.
That we're needy, like it's a burdensome thing or there's something wrong with us to be needy. Whereas Jesus was like, come to me all who are weary, all who are needy, all who are burdened. I actually don't shame that. But you do have to learn how to come to me.
Right.
And I think that's what we want people to learn in our schools is how do you live a life of coming to Jesus?
Right.
Yeah.
I think too, I'm just thinking about we talk a lot about, especially in the beginning of school, you don't have to diminish your past seasons to authenticate this one. And I think I think we are also taught I'm 27. If I have a need, that means that everything I've been doing was worth nothing.
Totally.
Right.
And not understanding your life is seasonal. The Lord, even we've been studying a lot, about fruit trees, and the reality is if you want a fruit tree to continue to bear fruit, it has to be pruned. And the pruning is not actually a narrative on what it's doing wrong. It's a narrative on what it's doing right. That it comes to a place of I need to be cut back. For the long haul of fruitfulness. I have to continue to be cut back. And I think I think it's something I think we really press and we want students to get a handle on, because we're and we say this, we've said it for years, your neediness for the Lord is your honor, not your shame, because that is kingdom culture. To have needs, to need the Lord and to need each other and to need more of the Lord is a lifelong experience. I mean, we all love when we sit with the 60, 70, 80-year-olds that are still learning about Jesus and still yielding to the Lord. But for some reason, that 20 to 30-year-old, it's like, no, I've arrived. No. And we're like, oh my, you're not even close to
Who told you that?
And you don't have to.
And you don't have to. Right. And I think that's even a message, like trying to just communicate, like everyone needs seasons of pulling the plug and recentering your heart. You are going to come and not know what you're doing. That is not like, there's no shame in that. But there is the reality, like if you don't become a learner for your whole life, like don't wait till crisis to say, I want to learn. Like don't wait till your life is imploding to say, oh, I guess I actually do really need this. It's like,
come to this.
Like it didn't have to come to that to actually learn to sustain your life in the Lord, which it has been something we've asked the Lord for since our camps. We started crying out, Lord, help us do sustainability. Like we don't want to burn out. We want to be in it for the long haul. And the more we've asked those questions, all of us, I think the more like true help we've been able to give. When you say, even in the last 5 years, I mean,
that's right.
The more we've like, how do we deal with life when it's hard? Are we doing awareness? Are we still hungry to learn? Like, are we still approaching the Lord like this? And okay, if we stay as a community, as a group of leaders that are inviting students in, if we stay soft and we keep our hearts pliable before the Lord, there's a much higher chance that when they come in, they're going to say like, I trust you with my heart.
I'm safe here.
I'm safe here. Like these people are still learning. I have students say to me in like at the end of the school, more than anything else, I was so surprised at how much you say I am learning. And I'm like, for me as a pastor, as a leader, it's the highest compliment for me. For them to observe, oh, it's Jonathan and Melissa, and they're still learning. And like, I'm like, oh man, that is the like pulse of our school. Can you be a learner? Your whole life is going to require that. You're going to get a new job. You have to learn it. You're going to get a promotion. You're going to have to learn it. You might get married. You're going to have to learn a new way. And then you have a kid, like another way. And then you have two. You're going to have to learn a new way. And then you transition to a new country or a new school or a new church or a new community. And like, if you're not a learner, like you run out of answers. Right. And then when you think I have to have the answers for this new job or this new community or this new church, like, and then the pride, the self-righteousness that comes when we don't posture ourselves as learners, like, and I think if students get a handle on that, then we all feel like we won. Even if they leave with more questions, that would be success to us. I mean, if they're even just asking more questions, I'm like, great. Like, I can't answer those questions. Like, I can't answer that. But I'm glad that you're asking it.
That's right.
Because I would rather you ask questions than get so locked in to self-righteousness that you do a lot of life without knowing that you have permission to need.
Right.
Come on.
It's like we have, I think there's these certain phrases that kind of encapsulate what the school is and what our culture of family is and the way we relate to God. And one of those is our dear friend Morgan Snyder was told by John Eldridge when John Eldridge took Morgan under wing and began to disciple him. And he said, discipleship is formed by the questions you ask. And you just said, like, I love when a student actually leaves our school with more questions than they came with. And that's because they've taken on then the the posture of a learner.
Yeah.
And to ask a question is to be needy.
Yeah.
To ask a question is to give up the illusion of control and to be vulnerable and to reveal your weakness, to come out from behind the fig leaves of your performance and say, I need.
Yes.
I just heard Chip Dodd say recently that Jesus was an expert in neediness.
Wow.
That he gets, towards the end of his life again, and he says, I only do what I see my Father doing, and I only say what I hear my Father speaking. So like he never outgrew his need for Father.
Wow.
Yeah.
And like that scripture you said in Matthew, when he said discipleship, this is how it begins. All you who are weary and burdened, come to me.
Yeah.
But you first have to realize that you are weary and burdened.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's some of those students who've been in their career and they're working so hard, but they are so weary because they think they have to have all the answers.
Right.
And just this grip. And as they begin to loosen it, and that's what you said, like that moment, like what does it feel like for you as a leader, that moment when that student said in class that day, I realized like I'm a bigger mess than I thought I was.
Like I jumped up and down. I think it is ultimately like, okay, now that you've relinquished your pride, it's game on. Like now that you've relinquished all, like, and you're like, oh wait, I've been wearing all these masks. And I've been performing for my parents, for my church community, for my friends. And like they get here and like a couple weeks in and they're like, oh my goodness, why am I so needy? I'm so needy. I'm so needy. And I think they all are surprised when we're like, yes.
Right.
You're awake.
Wonderful. Okay, let's go.
And it's relieving. I think that permission 100%. Is relieving.
Yes.
For everyone.
Yeah.
To find out it is a kingdom posture. To not know.
Yes.
And that we don't have to be ashamed of what we don't know.
Right.
And that it's what the Lord desires, actually.
Right.
Because when we ask good questions, we can ask Him.
Yes.
We can learn to live a life of asking Him good questions.
Yes.
Wow.
And that is walking with Jesus. So I just find it so relieving. I think
me too.
Students we walk with find it so relieving when they're not expected to come.
Right.
Knowing everything. And actually it's helpful when there's this humility of I don't know.
Right.
I need help.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It just makes the whole, unless you become like a little child,
That's right.
you'll never enter. Like you'll stand on the outside and never enter into the kingdom. And just thinking about kids are not ashamed of their neediness.
Right.
Like, I need a snack.
Right.
When they're sleepy, they'll let you know it. Like, they may resist going to bed at night, but like, you know it. Like, they need sleep. They need food.
And they say, why? Why? Like, it's like, they ask more questions than anything. Why do I have to do that? Why is that doing that? And there is that posture of like, I want to learn. I want to know. I mean, years ago, I remember the Lord really, even as just the information, the iPhone, all of it just started billowing. Because I'm like, we started the school and that really wasn't a thing. I mean, 15 years ago, and then camps and all that, like 22 years ago. And as was billowing and increasing, what we started observing was this shame of ignorance. It was this overwhelming like shame that I don't know, because as the availability of information increased, it was just the like, I don't even want to tell you that I don't know that. I probably could have just looked it up and I should know it already.
Wow.
And as that's increased, like we do have to do a lot of like,
that's real.
Actually, you don't need to, you shouldn't know that. How would you know that? Like you don't know how to do that. I mean, a huge part of our school is emotional health. And communication. Like love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. What does it even mean to love yourself? What does it even mean to take care of your heart, your soul? Like you don't know how to do that. Like, and it's okay that you don't know. Like you've come to a place to learn.
That's right.
And being able to, I think we do a lot of work just moving against that toxic shame of like,
I agree.
I know. Okay, I know. It's the student. It's every student comes with. I know.
Well, too, it's like the shame of I need someone to teach me.
Yeah.
Right.
I need someone to mother and father me and walk alongside me, because like we can. I mean, this is an amazing tool to teach us how to do so many things. Like I can look up a DIY video right now on how to fix my plumbing or all these different things. Like I can learn so many things, which is amazing. But like we were meant to be, so many of these things we were meant to be taught through the process of family and through the process of discipleship and through the process of like being with someone teaching us. And that shame of, I need someone to help me,
Yes.
Yeah.
I've had students tell me before, I wish that I could learn all of this by myself.
Yeah.
And I've felt it in my own heart at times. But I just think the way that the Lord designed us as people is that we actually can't heal completely by ourselves.
Wow.
We can't even heal that shame. Unless we look in the eyes of someone else who says, no, you're human and that's all normal. Yeah. We actually can't tell ourselves that.
No.
We can't be given permission that we don't have to be perfect by ourselves.
That's right.
Like we actually need community and people around us where we look at each other in the eyes and say, oh, we're human together.
Yes.
And that's what Jesus did.
Yeah.
He did it with 12.
That's right.
And he didn't save the world by himself, actually.
Yeah.
In that sense, he didn't live by himself.
No, he didn't.
And follow the Lord by himself. And so,
that's so beautiful.
And
man, I think what I was even thinking about, we talk about this a lot, that just how many people are so surprised that we spend even time on communication. And
talk about things like conflict.
And talk so much about conflict.
Like communication styles.
and
Conflict resolution.
Conflict resolution. And again, let's actually learn to receive the love of the Lord, and then let's learn to actually authentically love ourselves. Can we get honest with what's actually going on? Let's stop performing. Who are you performing for? There's no one here that wants you to perform.
Yes.
Oh, you're performing for yourself, actually. And let's get honest. Let's get into the weeds of what is actually going on. Let's get into the soil of your life. Let's invite the Lord into those really messy places. Yeah. And then let's learn how to love yourself.
Yes.
Authentically love the Lord, and then authentically love each other.
Right.
I'm like, it's astonishing how much schooling we go through and don't actually learn how to love each other.
Yeah.
And don't actually learn how to do really healthy conflict.
Yeah.
And really healthy tension.
Yeah.
Relationships are so tense. Life is so tense, and so much of the breakdown is relational.
Yeah.
And we want to be able to just go in our room with the Lord and learn it all and never have to do it with anyone else. We want to just be able to show up in our little communities, our small groups, our workplaces, perfect, all together. We don't need anyone. We don't need to do tension. We don't need anyone to say hey, that was really strange. Are you okay? What's going on? We don't want to have to do that. And it's impossible.
Yeah.
It's impossible. And I think I think by the time we get to the communication section of the school, I think students are relieved because they're like, oh my God, I'm such a mess. And I've affected so many people.
And they've been in community. Some of them really for the first time. Yeah.
Yeah. But then when they get there and they're like, oh, wait, you're going to help me learn to love people.
Right.
Actually, you're not just going to say oh, just forgive and forget. It'll be fine.
Yeah. It's not a big deal.
You're going to actually teach me how to love and listen, to be a good listener, to be someone that asks questions, to to be honest with the way I communicate or I don't communicate. Even that is such a stunning part of the school, because it actually matters to us that not only they thrive with the Lord, but they thrive with each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's impossible to walk with God without relationships. Jesus, I saw what you said, Phyllis.
Oh, man.
Jesus didn't model that.
Yeah.
He gave himself to relationships in all of the many forms. And he yielded to needing people in his life. I mean, all the way to the moment in the garden where he's like hitting a threshold of sorrow. He's like basically begging his friends to stay awake.
Come pray with me. Wow.
Come pray. Like, will you stay awake with me? Like, even that, the demonstration of the humility of Jesus to demonstrate need.
Wow. I was thinking at the beginning of our life, at the end of our life, we are completely needy.
Yeah.
Like we were a naked crying baby that could do nothing on our own. And we will, at the end of our life, we will be needy and we'll return to this place of neediness, but we try so hard everywhere in between to avoid neediness. And Jesus embraced it. Like the Son of God, like came down and embraced it. Our friend Adam Cox says that in those 20s, Jesus ordained the ordinary. Like he was... I love what you've said to our students, that like the whole thing that he was enjoying everything that he was going to die for. Is that what it was? You say like in those hidden years that we know nothing about.
Well, it's the question of like, what was Jesus doing and why did he wait? If he was the Son of God and he was like,
why not
had
get
it
on
all,
with it?
like, let's get on with it. We could have done 13 years of ministry and miracles. Why did he choose to linger? And us not know anything about it. I mean, from like 0 to 12, we know nothing, and then we have a little blip of him like being fascinated, and then full of wonder, and then like schooling all the religious leaders. And then it's like radio silence.
I mean, we do know that he was growing in wisdom and favor with God and man. So Jesus was growing. He didn't arrive. Like he arrived as a naked baby that needed he had needs. But he was growing. And I think a lot of people ask like, why is your school for 20 to 30 year olds? I mean, we do retreats for other ages. We do high school camps. But 15 years of our life we've given to 20 to 30 year olds. The first few schools were even younger, but as we've grown more, we've realized like anyone in their 20s and 30s, they are longing for like someone tell me who I am, not just put this pressure system on me to find out what I'm made to do. And we try, I think if we answered the question, this is who I am, then we'll find out what we're made to do.
For sure.
But I can look back at my teenage years as like, find out what I'm made to do, find out what I'm made to do. But no one's saying, slow down and find out who you are. And I mean, we've had several students even in their early 30s come because they're longing, like, and they've been on that race, they've been on that conveyor belt.
And I mean, we talk about this a lot, like the older students, like, is it going to be harder? And I think what we found, they're just more desperate because they've lived more life. And life has humbled them. And so for us, it's actually worth the risk of taking, the 32-year-old or 31-year-old.
That's right.
Because they're coming in with like, I've tried so many things. Right. And I know my need in a greater measure.
I'm weary and burdened. I'll come.
Right.
Even where the retreats are they're such a gift to us. After all these years of leading the schools, the retreats are such a gift. This last year was one of the most moving years. I love our retreats. I love the high school camp. I love gatherings that we do because you meet all ages and people from all different walks of life and background. But the desperation we experienced in both the men and the women in the retreats this year, coming in, like having experienced great losses that are unexplainable, illogical, like, and the suffering, some of the need that even the men came here with in the men's retreat this year just moved our hearts so deeply. But it's to what you're saying. There was just more of just an accurate just experience of what life is. And I think that's what's so humbling too about having these conversations and doing this type of discipleship is it just opens the door for men and women, young, old, to just come and say, I need God. And I need God more than I ever thought I did. And I think with the retreats, because our retreats are only 3, 4, 5 days, depending on it. And I remember even this year, since COVID, like some of what we've experienced in hosting the retreats, it's like we hit the ground running on day one. Mm-hmm. And there can be more of a buy-in with this school. It can take longer, like you're saying, to get to that point where someone shows up to a morning session. Maybe it's week 5. Maybe it's week 3.
Yeah.
We're like, sooner the better. But they show up and they're like, so I've realized I'm more of a mess than I ever thought I was. And we're rejoicing. And then it's like, I just think about the tears we shed during the men's and the women's retreats this year. Some of these men came in on day 1 and they're like, I need God.
I can't do this on my own.
I cannot. And I've run into that head first.
Yeah. Wow.
It's very humbling.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that moment of the, like, I'm more of a mess than I thought. I mean, you know, everyone laughs and then people start crying.
It drops. Yeah.
Because it is the, like, that would be in my, like, when I'm thinking about it, that would be one of the, like, crescendos of awareness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. When we hit that moment of like, oh my gosh, I'm a mess, and I can admit it.
Yeah.
And I can say it out loud in front of all these people, and it's okay because like they're not going to reject me. No one's leaving.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to stay.
Yeah.
And I think that is why, like, the school is so special and sacred. And I think the uniqueness of a missional community that's carrying those values before they ever get here. Mm-hmm. We are fighting for that awareness every day with each other. Like in seasons where we're not running schools, we're desperately, we're yielded, we're on the ground. We're like, Lord, we need you. And it's, I mean, even this year, we've had such a profound, like, humbling, I would say. We've spent more time as a community on our face before the Lord. And I've come to the point of like, oh, it's like the question is changing. It's not like, I wonder if I need to get down on my face. It's like, I'm curious how long I actually should stay down here because I'm just so needy for the Lord. And being able to like just admit that with like, oh, we're in our 40s and we need God more than we've ever needed him. And that posture and the willingness to stay there, for us to stay there, does create such a safe place. And it's something it's very hard to explain until they're here.
Yeah.
Like, this is a safe place. Like, you're going to sit one-on-one with like leaders, mentors, like people that are also practicing yieldedness. We are not going to give you all the answers, but we're going to show you how to posture yourself before the Lord. Like, we're not here to answer every question perfectly for you. That's actually not what you need. You need people to demonstrate yieldedness, to demonstrate surrender, to demonstrate the work. Like, you're all doing, and I mean, we say that you're all doing a lot of work. Are you doing the right work?
Right.
Like, get off the treadmill.
Yes.
Like, can Jesus come into the garden of your heart? Is he allowed to be in the soil? Like, you're trying to like curate your garden perfectly and then invite him in for a moment and be like, we good? Okay, we good. Now you can go. I got this. And the Lord's like, but I want to look at that bed back there that you've got a fence around that you don't want me to see.
Totally.
Like, let me get into that.
Yeah.
I want to pull those weeds out. You are that bed in your garden back there is what's robbing your joy. It's what's sucking the life out of your everyday. Like, let's talk about the 99%. I mean, that is the like nucleus, the heartbeat of our school. Is like, we're not interested in your 2% moments where you're like popping on social media or you're like thriving in your gifting. We're interested in the 98% of your life that's lived with yourself, with the Lord, and with other people. That's not curated. That's not perfectly put in order, but it's like, you're up on Tuesday morning and you're so overwhelmed. You don't even know how to find the Lord. And instead of just getting on your face and saying, Lord, I'm overwhelmed. I need you more than I've ever needed you. Like, and then calling a friend and saying, can you pray for me? I'm losing my mind right now. And like, do that instead of, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. The Lord is good. It's going to be okay. I'm just going to quote scripture. I'm going to, right. And all the anxiety, like, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. Let's just press through.
Yes.
And like, but but it's not working.
Yeah.
Because then you come home and the same despair is still there.
Yeah.
Because life is full of hardship and trauma and despair. And if you don't learn how to let Jesus into that despair, right? Like you're actually not going to make it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that is I feel like that is the increase of like,
come on,
where we as a missional community, we feel the need is so great.
Yeah.
Because there's just, the striving is so overwhelming. Like, who are we performing for? And where did you learn that?
Yeah.
And where is our culture's teaching, like, oh, just keep going. It'll work out eventually. And like, but you're 28 and it's not actually working out eventually. And you're scared to get that promotion or to get married or to have deep friendships with people because you're scared of yourself. Yeah. Because you haven't learned how to tend to the garden of your own life. Like, I don't know. That was kind of a tangent, but I feel it's the
heart. Yeah.
Lord, if they just at the end of a school, phase 1, phase 2, whatever, if they just come to like, I'm so needy.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Because the Holy Spirit will meet your need.
That's right.
Jesus will meet your need. He will show you the way.
Yeah.
But if you're full of pride and you're like, I got this, he resists the proud. There's no way around it. It's a kingdom principle. And so if we can just get to humility, then we are going in the right direction.
Come on.
Right? Like, if we can just get to the posture of learning.
Yeah.
And saying like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I just...
I think...
Go ahead, Phyllis.
I think Jesus also wants to free us from the despair and the discouragement that comes from everything that we try to do by ourselves.
Yeah.
And the cycling of... And I've been there of this is my new plan for how I'm going to walk with the Lord and how I'm going to thrive in life. And it's this, and all these different things that I'm trying in my own power. And it produces such a discouragement and a despair. And I think that a gift of letting myself be needy for the Lord and for others to teach me is that I can get off of that. What I can produce by myself. That is despairing.
Right.
For me, I actually need Jesus so much. So there's the come out of the pride, but also he wants to heal us from the discouragement. That hits our souls when we've been trying to follow Jesus for years, and we feel like everything I've been doing, when I feel like everything I've been doing in my own strength isn't panning out. How do I keep hoping and walking with the Lord? And so the permission to just be, I don't have to do this in my own strength anymore, can also lift the cycling. And I see that. I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it in students' lives. And I think the Lord rejoices over that kind of freeing of our hearts.
It's like when they hit that moment and they're just like, I'm trying so hard. And we're just like, we know. You're like, but I'm doing so much work. Like, okay, can we ask the question, is it the right work? Without spinning out and like the Lord's disappointed in me and people are just, can we just acknowledge like, yes, we've done a lot of work. Lord, we want to even do the better work that actually is going to produce fruit in the long haul.
Come on.
Yeah. Posture is everything. Changing your posture and just coming. I can see in my own life how many things I pose as an expert when I have so much to learn.
Right.
I just read.
Did you say pose as an expert?
Yeah.
That cuts a little deep,
Oswald Chambers has this quote. He says, beware of posing as a profound person.
Wow.
God became a baby.
I Oswald would come for you.
He'll come for you good right there.
And just, again, back to that moment, just when that student finally stopped posing and was like, okay, I'm going to come out from behind my fig leaves and show you who I really am.
Yes.
And it's like, and we're like, yes, discipleship can start now.